Good evening. Welcome to the Irish NFL Show, Week 6 preview edition this Thursday night. Delighted to have Colin Cronin join myself and a new face to the show, albeit he's been doing quite a lot of work in the background between Instant Reaction podcasts and obviously the Tuesday morning series. Shane, Brendan, it's great to have you join us this Thursday evening.
Yeah, thanks. This is my debut on Thursday night prime time. I'm looking forward to get into it and hoping I can put in a strong performance, which I know doesn't always happen in the NFL on Thursday night, but I'll do my best.
See, Shane, you're very much aware of our former colleague Mark Crocker was a massive Patriots fan, and see, Mark got a lot of joy during the time on the show. So we didn't have many days where the Patriots were having a poor season. So we needed to kind of rally the troops and get something back involved. The Patriots have had a very difficult start to the season, fair to say.
Yes, that is fair to say. I mentioned in the Instant Reaction on Sunday that if there's any fan base that deserves their share of pain after the years of living in the stratosphere, it's us. So I'm sort of embracing it. But the fall from grace has been simply stunning. So I'm happy to take all the beatings, all the gloatings. Thank God we're finally getting back in now. As much of the Boston media is getting in their fight back against Bill Belichick after Bill Belichick being so cold after all these years. So go on, all the do you know what? It's finally nice seeing the Patriots down. I'll take it all. Keep firing away.
No, we're not really in much of a position to be gloating. Colin is 1-4. We're 1-4. The New York Giants, and obviously Colin's team are playing tonight on Thursday Night Football. For anyone who wants to check out our Thursday Night Football preview, that is available across all podcast platforms. Self, Colin, Andrew Morgan, and we had Matt and Derek from Chiefs Digest join us to go through that game, which kicks off later this evening, 1:20 in the morning. This opening segment is, as always, brought to you by RulePoint, demonstrating the value of global PR and comms. Check out their website, www.rulepoint.com. Okay, let's get into it. So Sunday afternoon, Steph and Shane will be there in various capacities at this game on Sunday, which is the Titans coming to London to face off against the Baltimore Ravens. I'll kick off with you, Colin. Titans are on the plane at the moment, judging by the nature of the social media content gone out this evening, and the Ravens have been there since Monday. So bearing in mind all the talk we had last week of teams not arriving in time, surely this is a Ravens victory all over it.
Well, I spoke to Mike Herndon, and that podcast will be available over the weekend. He has one of the best named podcasts I've ever come across, Football and Other F Words. And he said that there have been plenty of F words in relation to the Titans this season. The O-line has really struggled. Now, they've had 2 wins. And when I was thinking about this, I went with Hank Thompson had a song, The Wild Side of Life. And for both of these teams, I think you could say that. The Ravens had a game that they threw away. They probably should have had more than 30 points last week. The issue that I spoke to with Mike, and he goes into great detail about this, is if the Titans can bully you, if you cannot match them and their attitude, they are going to be able to beat you. But their next 4 games, and I would say beginning here with the Ravens, they're going to meet teams that are very difficult to bully, to impose your will on. And the Ravens, just sometimes you get those results in the league where things just don't go your way. Zay Flowers had an off game, and in his absence, nobody else really stepped up. They're getting players back. They're getting healthier. And I just think that the Titans O-line is going to struggle. Derrick Henry is averaging fewer than 4 yards a carry. It's the lowest of his career to date. I don't think he's completely washed, but I do think they need to lean more into Spears, using them as a 1-2 punch. I think this will be kind of a knockdown, drag out fight between 2 coaches who, will both use interesting tactics at times, I'm sure. Ultimately, I do think the Ravens get the win, but I think this could be an intriguing matchup in London.
Shane, we've also got another podcast coming this weekend on the Ravens side of things from Brian Wacker from the Baltimore Sun, and he was taken back by the questions going around this week whether Lamar is worthy of this contract. But anyone who watched that game last weekend, and even the Colts game, doesn't seem to be down to Lamar and players not catching the ball and doing what they should do. And seems to be a bit of a friction between various medias who are kind of very much on the Lamar train. Are you on the Lamar train for this game in terms of them winning this game, or you see Titans who nearly won last weekend. 2 home wins. This is on the road, surely, albeit it's deemed to be a home game. They are on the road. Columns touched on it there. They've lost their home game. Sorry, they lost their road games. Is this a Ravens victory?
I think it is, mainly because the Ravens really need to prove that they are much better than they performed against the Steelers over the weekend. I mean, like Colin alluded to, they really should have scored 30 points, but, you know, Lamar Jackson can't do everything. Your quarterback can throw a ball and can throw a fantastic ball, but someone has to catch them, and they just weren't catching them, holding onto the ball properly in what was a very messy offensive battle between Pittsburgh and Baltimore over the weekend. I mean, when the entire stadium is chanting "Fire Matt Canada," and Pittsburgh Steelers still managed to find a way to outscore you, you're doing something seriously wrong. So the Ravens, I think the fact that they have taken the initiative to get to London early, I think they realize the importance of this game, to not let London be something that can derail their season, so they can keep the momentum up to put themselves firmly on top of the AFC North. Because now that the Bengals seem to be back after, mind you, it's only after one game. You know, the Ravens need to say, hey, we're still ahead. We're we should be. People are saying they should be 5-0, and they probably should be 5-0, but they just haven't had the steel to finish games off. And it was a similar story to last year when they had in the early part of the season when they found ways to lose games that they shouldn't have lost. That's the way things have gone so far in Baltimore. But what I'm fortunate enough to go with a couple of friends, both of whom will be wearing Titans jerseys. So I don't know, I might, just to be contrarian, I might wear something purple. Actually, sorry, one of them was wearing a Houston Oilers jersey for the throwback, real throwback fans. But no, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Lamar Jackson in particular will react to this, because at the same time that your superstar is getting paid all the money, can't do everything. Can he be the spiritual leader to get his entire offense back singing the same tune again? That's what I really want to see, because it's not all about talent. It's not all about what you can do with the ball. You have to be somebody who can lead your team. When you've 11 guys on the field, who's going to follow you, who's going to fight at that extra 1% harder to make that block, to make that tackle, to make that catch. After the showing in Pittsburgh, the Ravens really need to pull that out, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can pull out against the Titans team that could beat them if they're singing well. But if the Ravens are playing like we know the Ravens can, they should win this by 2 scores, I think.
John Harbaugh seems very relaxed this week, bearing in mind the last time he was there, he was very uptight, and they lost 44-7 to the Jags back in 2017. Arrived in on the Friday, didn't seem very keen on being there in the first place. I think he understands the nature of where the NFL are in terms of growing the sport internationally. Ravens for me on Sunday, I think we to get back on track, and I think the Titans' road struggles continue. Now, a team who's continuously struggling throughout the course of the season, and Colin, you touched on it on Tuesday night, there seems to be a little bit of discomfort with Frank Reich and obviously the owner in terms of how the draft process was managed, and they're going into Miami, and we saw last weekend when a team is struggling going into Miami, there's only one result, and that is an offense that goes up and puts a number of different ways of beating you with different players. But their rookie running back is out now. It looks like he's gone to week 11. Is that a factor in this game, or are you confident the Dolphins will overcome this and win comfortably on Sunday against the Panthers team that have yet to have a win this season?
I mean, is Achane loss? Absolutely. He's been a fantastic rookie. He's had a great year to date, but you would imagine with Mike McDaniel, with Tyreek Hill, with Waddle. Remember that they hung 70 on the Broncos without Waddle, and he is a serious wide receiver. So I think they will be able to scheme around, Achane's loss. He's gone on IR, but they are going up against a Panthers team. And who are, like, I have never seen the head coach talk basically so openly. I mean, again, like people, I think there might be people who say, oh, but really, did he mean? Yes, he absolutely was talking about the fact that David Tepper interfered in the pick. And a man with a wonderful name, Johnny Paycheck, sang a song, "Take This Job and Shove It." I think we might see Frank Reich say that, or we might see David Tepper say it. I was listening to Kevin Clark, who previously with the Ringer, moved across to Omaha Productions. The Mannings got him, and he was talking, I suppose, in relation to where Bill Belichick might go, and the fact that sometimes these billionaire owners, can want to kind of a footballing mind. Could that be an escape route, and could he move on from Frank Reich if things go really poorly this season? Ultimately, the Dolphins in Miami, it's still October. It's not where you want to be going when you're 0-5. I have to say, I think the Miami train keeps on rolling here.
Shane, Dolphins are top of the division, bearing in mind what's happened over the course of the last week with the Bills losing in London. And people would argue, rightly so, they've been the best team in the division. Some would say Bills, but this is one of those games. They're beating up on bad teams. Like they're getting themselves into position to win against stronger teams. Obviously, couldn't get over the hump against the Bills. But in this game, you can't see anything more than Dolphins putting up huge numbers and maintaining this winning record at home.
Yeah, in the NFL, you can never say never, but I mean, it is difficult to see a path for the Panthers to win. The only real way you can see it is if they manage to pick off Tua and punish on picks, which I don't really see happening, mainly because the Miami offense, if they make a mistake, they won't make a second mistake straight away, and they'll find a way to kill you. They in the heat of in Miami, I just don't think the Panthers are just generally good enough to properly stand up to this. So it would not surprise me if Miami end up going up early and continuing on early, which is, I think, is a shame considering the Panthers still have a sort of blossoming Bryce Young on the other side, who can really show good moments. And if he's given the ball in a good position, he can really, there are times where he can show the talent that made him the number one pick. But playing in Miami, as much as the heat probably may not be as much of a factor for a team coming from Carolina, which isn't that much of a different climate, going to Miami, Miami are going to defend their home ground really well. They've got Tua, they've got Tyreek Hill. They're going to score, and they're going to keep on scoring. The only way you beat Miami, I think, especially in Miami, isn't by stopping them in defense, is by finding a way to somehow outscore them, which I just don't see happening.
Giants turned the ball over 3 times last weekend, won the turnover battle 3-0, 91% strike rate in the NFL when a team does that, and yet they still got beaten comfortably. Ultimately, if that was the case, you'd want to see what Bryce Young and his offense can do. It's a fair point. Just can't say it myself. With you as I'm with the Dolphins. I think there's going to be quite a few full houses here tonight on a certain amount of games. The next one is this one is an intriguing one, and that is the Jags returning off their 2 wins in London in a game which will probably be in a very tricky situation in terms of the heat as well. And they face the Colts, a divisional clash, and time again we spoke about in this AFC South how teams find themselves winning on the road and never seem to beat them at home. You see that trick returning this weekend, Colin, or do you think with Gardner Minshew in place they can get over the line, or is it Jags very much now, hitting the accelerator after those 2 wins in London?
I think this will be a very tight game. I think the Colts have probably performed better than we anticipated at the beginning of the season, and I think the Jags, obviously London helped because they had a poor enough start, but they were able to overcome a poor Falcons team, and ultimately between the Bills' injuries and kind of ill preparedness, perhaps they beat the Bills. But it's a tough game to come back to a divisional game, even if it's at home. And Minshew is the backup. Anthony Richardson will be back in once he is ready to go again. But Minshew has played really, really well, and Shane Steichen, I keep saying it, he's got a great feeling for this. I think the Jags are building nicely, but I do think that this might be a surprise. I have the Colts winning this one, and kind of going on the country theme. Buck Owens had a song called "I've Got a Tiger by the Tail." Well, I think Shane Steichen and the Colts are going to have a Jags by the tail come the end of this one.
Shane, you buying Adam's notion here on the Colts? Is it an upset? I mean, it's tight enough one, even from a betting perspective, and the handicap that's with it, it's 3 or 4 points. Jags will look to get over the line and improve, and obviously try to get ahead in this division.
Yeah, I remember talking to Ben Isaacs a couple of weeks ago. We were talked about how the Jaguars coming to London was a big part as a large social experiment. How do things happen when you stay over in London for 2 weeks and then come back? This is the last part of that social experiment. How does coming back to America really affect the Jaguars after being in London for 2 weeks? And I think it's going to affect them more than they think, because teams are used to going over and back in 1 week. 2 weeks in London and then coming back to the Florida Heat to try and play against the Indianapolis Colts, who I think are on decent form. I actually think it might slow them down more than we expect. Because if the Jags play like they have been the last couple of weeks, and we know that London was kind of their reset point last season, they came back and they hit a purple patch and built onto the top in the division. If the Jags come back and do something similar again, then they're going to be a very good team to play against. But I just honestly, I can see this one being a little bit stuttering for Trevor Lawrence and co, because the Colts haven't had too much traveling to do. It's a divisional game against a team that they're familiar with, so it'll be much easier, or they'll be much better prepared coaching wise. And the Jags are trying to reset again for the second time in the space of a month after a long period away from family and friends and all that kind of thing. So I would not be surprised at all if the Colts find a way to win this. And I think Gardner Minshew as well, if he is going to be under center, which I believe he is, he's been playing quite strongly. So I don't see any reason why the Colts can't win this. It's just whether or not they are going to bring their top game, or whether they are going to find some way to slow down. I don't think this is really going to be a case of which team is going to slow down the most, because we know in the NFL it's very difficult to hit top form and to keep it going. The Jags have obviously done that playing against the Bills, which I don't want to be too negative here, but the Bills weren't the Bills that we know they can be. So as much as the Jags did get a win against the Bills, it wasn't like they performed excellent to beat them. The Bills had been knocked down by that 10% by what looks like poor management. So for me, it's going to be a case of who is going to get knocked down more. And I think the Jags are going to suffer from the traveling more than we expected to, because 2 weeks is a long time to be away and to try and adjust back to American life again.
Right. Okay. I'm gonna side with the Jags on this. I just think it's night and day to where we were last year. Bearing in mind we saw the troubles in which Trevor Lawrence had in Wembley last year against the Broncos, and that was kind of a reset moment for them last season. I think they've already had their reset moment, and that was when they lost to the Texans a couple of weeks ago at home, and they struggled badly in that game, and they struggled against the Chiefs to move the ball. I was quite impressed with Trevor Lawrence last week. I know the argument this week, and you've alluded to Shane around. Now, it was potentially a mismanagement of when the Bills came over and they looked very lethargic in the first half. I think over the course of the game, Trevor Lawrence was really good. I know there was the fumbles when you could argue you should have been a little bit more secure at the ball. They could have taken field goals. But now I think in this game, I think they'll be fine. I think the fact they got out of London on Sunday night, quickly returned to the States, Sunday even, local time, got back into things from Tuesday onwards. I'm reassured that they've recognised the troubles they've had in the past coming back. I'm going to go with the Jags to win this game. NFC North, cracking game. This Chicago Bears 1-4 going on the road into Minnesota against the 1-4 Vikings, and the Vikings really need this game. Otherwise, this continued speculation around Kirk Cousins is only going to intensify in the next 2 weeks leading up to the trade deadline. And the Bears re-energized after last week's game. Colin, bearing in mind the previous week they did well offensively for 3 quarters. Had a really good game last weekend. Do we see it? Do you see an upset here? And is it an upset even at this stage of the season if they were to go in and win this game? They played the Vikings very tough, very close last year on both occasions. Did they get out of the line, or do you think the Vikings get a home win?
I don't know if it would be that much of an upset. Justin Jefferson, to me, is the best wide receiver in the league, and to lose a player of his caliber, talked about it on Tuesday night show, it's not just what he brings, it's himself, right? We know the talent that he is. It's the fact that he opens the game up for everybody else, right? Because defenses are so concerned about him. And I think Kirk Cousins could very easily have said, right, when he was asked that question, no, I'm not going anywhere. He didn't. I think it's still very difficult for it to get done, but I think the fact that he didn't say that, no, I'm definitely staying here, I'm not open to a trade, I don't want that to happen, that was interesting, right? He kept the speculation going, and Kirk is around long enough and experienced enough to know what he was doing in that instance. I think, for both of these franchises, it's a bit, friends in low places, because neither of them are probably where they want to be right now. I think the Vikings are going to be in probably full rebuild mode, this is tough, because I don't think there's that much difference between the Vikings last year and the Vikings this year. But with the Jefferson injury, with the speculation around Cousins, with the fact that the defense, I think, has a much better coordinator, but they don't have the players that for a Brian Flores defense, I'm going to say the Bears get the win at Soldier Field, he said, with not a whole lot of conviction.
Who would have thought it, Shane, after the way in which we're talking about the Bears after the Broncos game, and they go and put a 40 down last weekend. Are you going with this Bears talk as well?
I'll tell you one thing. For me, anytime a Bears win a game, it's a surprise. And I watched the Thursday night game last week, and I thought they were fantastic on offense. It's almost like beforehand they were playing whilst they were asleep, and then they got like 20 cans of Red Bull into them and just really flicked on from the start. They were a completely different team. Whether they can do that again, I don't know. To me, it's actually not necessarily an offensive, what they're going to do offensively that can be the difference. It's whether or not they can really get through the Vikings O-line and get to Kirk Cousins. I mean, I think they got 5 sacks against Washington last week. TJ Edwards can be quite daunting when he wants to be. He got a sack against Howell last week. If he gets a sack or two against Kirk Cousins and just try to knock the stuffing out of him a little bit in the Soldier Field, in Soldier Field, the Bears have a path to win this. But it's because the Vikings aren't firing the way that they know how. Well, my fear is, and I think that there is, after the Justin Fields blowback and people, putting their jerseys on fire and all this kind of stuff, now that they're back home, I don't know whether once something starts going wrong for Chicago, whether their home fans will start getting on their backs, and then the Vikings have a path to properly sort of to choke them down a little bit. To me, that's the only way that the Vikings can really, use the crowd around them to push down on the Bears and get the win. Kirk Cousins is still good. The defense can hold up the Bears if they start playing like the Bears of a few weeks ago. So I think this will be a close game. I'm not going to say with much conviction who I think is going to win, but as much as they've had bad luck with kickers over the years, I think the Vikings could win this by a field goal.
Shane, correct me. You're right, Shane. The Bears are in fact at home on Sunday. I had said that the Vikings are hosting the Bears. That doesn't change anything for me. I'm still going to go with the Vikings. I think the Vikings get in and get the victory. Colin has touched on it. JJ being unavailable is a bit of a loss, but there is other players offensively that can step in and do the job. I'm just not convinced that the Bears, having won on Thursday Night Football last weekend, just so many inconsistencies with this team. Like Justin Fields come out on Sunday and he could have a mare of a game. Everybody assumes he's going to come out and have a huge game. So no, I am going to go with the Vikings to win this one in a tight affair. Colin, you look shocked.
I'm not shocked about the pick. I'm shocked at you saying there are other players who can come in and do a job. There's nobody like Justin Jefferson in the league.
Serviceable players. We go with serviceable players. Osborne can do stuff. They have running backs there in Madison. They have a rookie wide receiver that will get more play now. Maybe this will propel him onto another level. He's had a good start to the season. You weigh it up on what the Bears have and what the Bears' concerns are defensively over the course of the season. I'm sticking with the Vikings. Right, closing out the opening segment, arguably could be said as the game of the weekend. This is the Seattle Seahawks going on the road into Cincinnati to face the Bengals. The Bengals coming off last week's road win against the Cardinals, in which people were saying Joe Burrow was back. He threw three touchdowns to Jamar Chase. As I said on the show Tuesday, I don't think he's back. I think he was better. I'm still not convinced he's over the injury. This is a huge game from Brandon One. They've got the 49ers and then they've got the Bills coming up. Two really difficult games. They've got to get this one over the line. And Seahawks are coming off their bye week. They'll be buoyed with the big win on Monday night and how they played against the Giants. And they look they're going in the right direction. Colin, this one is a very tough one to call this weekend.
Yeah, two good teams. These were my Super Bowl picks, so I'm somewhat torn on this one. I was when I was thinking about it, and in relation to what kind of country song might this be? Surely for both of these teams, particularly the Bengals, it's Jimmy Davis's "You Are My Sunshine" because everything revolves around Joe Burrow, and he has changed life in Cincinnati. And for the Seahawks, life post Russ with Geno, well, it continues to be really good. Geno, even the clips of him on the sideline with the rookie wide receiver, where he's coaching him up and he's telling him to keep his head up after a couple of mistakes. Geno continues to be really, really impressive. I do think it is really difficult to pick. But I just with the Bengals being at home and because they I think need it more, I'm going to go with the Bengals. But it is absolutely one where if the Seahawks won this, it would not be in any way a surprise. I really think this is a coin toss game.
Caleb sounds very torn on this one, Shane. Where are you leaning in this one? It's really enticing game. It's the kind of game you want to be watching on Sunday evening.
Yeah, this has the hallmarks for a really classic clash between two of the top teams. I'm a big Burrow believer, and sorry to sort of steal your thunder on the country music, but I think that Burrow's on the road again, and that the Cincinnati Bengals are finally going to start kicking in and week on week start becoming the offensive powerhouse that we know that they can be. Like I said, when the Bengals are playing their typical style Bengal football, they can throw a pick, they can lose. They don't necessarily have to be very careful with the football because they have the talent to really go and strike at them again. Because I can see the Seattle defense, particularly in the first half, finding a way just to sort of to contain things and maybe getting an early pick, maybe getting a few early sacks, maybe just getting a little bit of needle. But as the game goes on, I personally think that the Bengals will find a way to just have a quick snap, score, going into the second half. But am I saying I have conviction? Yes, because I really like watching Joe Burrow and that offense. Is it going to happen? No, because this is the Seattle Seahawks. They're a well coached team. Geno Smith is playing well. Kenneth Walker is doing really well on rushing, and he seems to be getting seeing a lot of the ball. And Cincinnati aren't the world's best at stopping the run, so. I think the Bengals can win this and pull away in the fourth quarter, but it's going to be close and it's going to be a good matchup, particularly in the first half.
I'll go with the road team. I'm going to go to Seahawks. I think still not sold on this recovery of Joe Burrow. It was the Cards last week. With all due respect to the Cards, I think they're gradually coming back to what we expected. They've been outscored 44-7 in the fourth quarter, and the Bengals, for quite a large part of that game offensively, they were still up and down to what we saw during the season. In fact, it wasn't really pick six just before halftime to give the Bengals the lead. Then obviously that was a kind of turning point in the game. For me, Brendan Munn, they didn't get it on the fourth and goal play just prior to that. And I know he had the 3 touchdowns and he looked a lot more composed and he was running with the ball. But this is a different test from this weekend. This Seattle defense, from what I saw a couple of weeks ago with the 11 sacks and even other games, are gradually getting to the level and the stage in which I imagine Pete Carroll would expect it. So I'll go with the shock. I don't genuinely right now thinking it's a massive shock because it's one we're all torn on. So I'll go Seahawks. That closes out the opening segment of the Irish NFL show. If you're just on the podcast, this segment was sponsored by Real Point, demonstrating the value of global PR and comms. Next game, guys, is an enticing one, and that is the New Orleans Saints going on the road to the Texans. And Colin, you've been, pleasantly surprised by the Texans this season. You've selected them in a couple of games. You did last week against the Falcons, and it was one they'll look back on and still reflect on how they didn't get over the line on the road and win that game. But CJ Stroud again was really impressive as the rookie quarterback that he is. And the fans had a chance against the Saints team once they won comfortably in New England last weekend. They're not really setting the world afire offensively. They're very much reliant on the defense. How do you see this one playing out on Sunday?
Yeah, I don't know if people watching or listening to it have heard Stroud talk about that kind of last drive that he orchestrated, he's so impressive. Like, he's impressive on the field, he's impressive. He talked about how he was essentially dissecting the defense, and it came both from what he was seeing on the field and also from watching tape and kind of knowing the players' traits. For a rookie, I mean, he really has taken to the league like a duck to water. I mean, they were showing it last week. What was it? 177 was when he set a new record. He's won in and around 190 now already. So you wonder how many more now, look, there's going to be interceptions at some point. There will be, I suppose, what would you say? Some rocky moments ahead. But Hank Williams sang "I Saw the Light," and that is the Texans. For so long, they were in the wilderness, really poor decisions. Nick Caserio, and they've got it right. Again, with Mike Herndon talked about it, and you can hear that he was saying if he had a choice in the AFC South for the next 10 years, he had to pick one team to back on. And it pains him as a Titans fan. He said it would be the Texans. The Saints, I think, bullied a really bad Patriots team last week. I don't think they'll be able to bully this Texans team. I'm going to maybe go for a surprise, but they're at home. I think the Texans bounce back from last week and they get the victory over the Saints here.
Shane, Saints obviously did a number on your Patriots last weekend. Defensively very strong, have been for quite a lot of the season, which has led to the victories, bearing in mind I suppose the inefficiency of the offense at times. Are you buying the Texans at home in this one, or you think the Saints and the experience that they have defensively will have enough to get over the line and take care of CJ Stroud?
I agree with a lot of Colin said there. I think I think CJ Stroud is a fantastic talent, but it's kind of unfortunate that the Texans are 2-3 when they really could have a better record. I don't know exactly what it is that they need to do in the fourth quarter games. The Falcons seem to come alive last week and take them out. I think this is a typical game where it's strong point versus strong point and weak point versus weak point. When the Texans offense playing against the Saints defense, the Saints defense knows how to shut you down, knows how to pick you off. But I just think CJ Stroud is just smarter and just a bit more, just too quick to think and to make the right plays for the Saints to put up enough points to beat him. I think I think that Derek Carr, or the Saints in general, pretty much had a very easy day in Foxborough. I mean, New England Patriots nowhere stood up to be any good. I think the Texans are just a little bit more battle hardened, a little bit more hungry, a little bit more talented to get over the line in this one. It'll be a close game because I think that they will trade scores early on, but I'm going for a Texans win in this one.
I can't recall the last time in which we did a show where everybody, well, 2 of the 3 people on the show had selected the Texans leading into the final. And that inevitably is going to make it a full house and take the Texans. No, I'm going to go with the colours, which are as close to the Saints as Colin has on. Colin's probably more Steelers tonight than he is Saints. But no, I'm going to rely on the Saints, and I'm going to rely on this defense to have a plan in place to combat the impressive CJ Stroud. And I think they'll have more than enough in the end to win this game. I think this one will be a little bit easier than other games. I think they might pull away and navigate a victory here. And where the Texans have been very close in a number of games that they've lost, I don't see that in this one. Could be very wrong, but I'll go Saints to win this one. Now the next one is an interesting one because there's a watch party in Buskers on the Ball on Sunday evening. That is the San Francisco 49ers fan base are all clamoring to get together for Sunday night. I don't know why they picked this one. They could have picked any game the way their season's going, and they would have known a victory was on the way. It doesn't look like Deshaun Watson is going to play. It looks like PJ Walker is going to be quarterbacking for the Cleveland Browns at home as they face the 5-0 San Francisco 49ers. Are the guys in Buskers on the Ball this Sunday, Colin, going to have a good evening? Are they going to be celebrating another victory?
In short, absolutely. These boots are made for walking, and that's that's just what they're going to do. These boots were made for walking. They're going to walk all over you, and that is what the 49ers are going to do. This Browns defense are impressive, but they are going up against a very different beast. They are going up against the most informed team in the league. Can't yet crown them the best team, but they are the most informed team. I think that goes without argument. So impressive thus far, and they can get you every which way, right? Last week against the Cowboys, they just bullied them. They were better on offense. They were better on defense. Talked about Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. Chris McCaffrey had a good game. Don't get me wrong, he had a good game, but it was George Kittle, right? Ultimately, next week it could be Debo, it could be Ayuk. They are just so good, and the Browns will, I think they're a stout defense, and it'll be interesting to see how they approach it. But ultimately, I just cannot see them having down QB1, down RB1. I don't think they have enough points to compete with this 49ers team.
Shane, we spoke on Tuesday night show around whether it's the Eagles or 49ers that right now you would argue who are the number one team within the NFC. I mean, there's legitimate arguments for both sides, but the way the 49ers are playing and the way they did a number on the Cowboys last weekend, the only thing I could see is that Browns defense finding a way to slow them down. But as Colin touched on, with players missing on the Browns offense, it's difficult to see how they can keep up with them. Are you seen the 6-0 49ers by the time Sunday night finishes up?
If it's anything other than a 49ers win, I'll be shocked. I mean, for people who don't know how gambling works, if you put a tenner on the Browns to win this game, what happens is you're going to lose a tenner. It's as simple as that. Like the 49ers have just been in every game they've played, they've found a new way to impress you. And against the Cowboys, when everyone's expecting this to be a 1980s style classic clash. And I know there's a little bit of psychology around the fact that the 49ers kind of have the Cowboys number a little bit, but I mean, every way, you Brock Purdy, Jordan Mason, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, they're all just fantastic players, all playing at a peak level in a really well-coached system. The 49ers, I think, are better than the Philadelphia Eagles at the moment. Will that be the case at the end of the season? I don't know, but I don't like this game. As good as the Browns defense can be, and I know they gave up 28 points to the Ravens in the last game, as good as the Browns defense can be, they can slow them down. You can't stop them. It's as simple as that. When you play the 49ers, your aim is to try and keep them to below 20 points and find a way to score 21 or more. That's not going to happen this weekend. My only, I guess, negative point I will say for 49ers fans, and by the way, I know I'm going to be in London. I'm raging. I'm missing this. It's going to sound like great crack. This a meeting in Buskers off the ball. So definitely head down to that, even if you're not a 49ers fan. But one thing I will say is, though, is in the NFL, it's very difficult to hit your peak, hit your kind of purple patch, and to keep that going for the end of the season. It feels like the 49ers are playing at their absolute best now, and it's in October. So I'm just worried about whether or not they can keep that up for December, January, especially because I think around week 12, I'm not quite sure, they have to play the Seahawks, then the Eagles, then the Seahawks again. That's a crucial point that will slow them down. But there's one team that definitely is not going to slow them down. It's this Cleveland Browns team, because frankly, they won't score enough points to outscore Brock Purdy and co.
Colin, there was a 49ers watch party in Leeds last year, if I remember correctly. I think they were playing the Atlanta Falcons. And I remember Sky were covering. It was great hype, and everybody was in there. And the air went down the building as the Falcons beat the 49ers. No, not happening on Sunday. It's as much as I want to see the Browns win to keep up my selection of them making the playoffs, I can't see anything other than a 49ers victory on Sunday evening. 49ers fans will be out celebrating in Temple Bar to all hours, I imagine, in Buskers on the Ball. Sunday night 49ers watch party. If you haven't heard of it, check it out on their various social pages and get down there and enjoy the evening. Now, one team that will be enjoying the evening is the team that's at home, because and I go with the Falcons here. I'm going to pick out early. Falcons at home to the Commanders. I'm going to go Falcons on this one. They've won all their home games this season. Going up against the Commanders team that are reeling off that loss last week against the Bears. I know the NFL can be a bit erratic at times, and sometimes when you get blown out, you come back and have a strong performance. But Falcons, and in particular at home, I thought that was a good rebound victory last week, bearing in mind what we saw in London. And they'll be out again looking to push themselves and continue this run within the division. So for me, Falcons to knock off the Commanders. Colin, how do you see this one playing out?
Patsy Cline had that great song Crazy, and I think if you're a fan of either of these teams, that's how you would be feeling, because both of them would drive you crazy, because the Commanders started it off well, but against the Bears they were embarrassed, and Del Rio needs to figure that out, because when the Bears are doing that deal, what can other offense potentially do it to you? For the Falcons, they have been really good at times, and really poor at others. Shane and I saw them against the Jags, and they had absolutely nothing go right on offense. That they really couldn't get anything going. But last week, Ritter looked pretty good, and they dealt with a Texans team who are vastly improved and who had an awful lot of momentum, and they still managed to get it done. I think the Commanders have real issues on the O-line, and Sam Howell is a young QB. He needs to learn that he has to get rid of the ball. He cannot take the punishment that he is taking. We've seen it with Daniel Jones get injured. We've seen it time and time again in the league. And ultimately, if Howell continues to play the way in which he is, he's going to get injured. I see that the Falcons have kind of brought in some receiving help this week. I think they will have enough to get it done at home. I think they will do it. I'm going to say the Falcons get the win in this one.
Shane, Colin referring to the Van Jefferson trade from the Rams during the weekend. Just to his point, Sam Howell has been sacked more times this season than Daniel Jones, and right now everybody would just assume it's Daniel Jones. And that's quite telling. Colin was right. It's quite telling that this is the level of play we're seeing from this team, and still they've found ways to win a couple of games. But how do you see this one going? Are you buying the Falcons in this one?
Yeah, you mentioned the Commanders. They can be real mercurial. Sometimes they can come out and they can be quite strong and sort of surprise you a little bit, and sometimes they can be sort of, if not as bad as you expected, worse than you expected. I think the fact that it's in Atlanta is huge, because Desmond Ridder as quarterback is 5-0 at home, and even when he was a Cincinnati Bearcat in college, he was 22-0 at home. I don't know if he's like allergic to airline food, or if there's something the pressure gets to his head when he travels, because, well, as Colin alluded to, in London, the offense had no plan and didn't know what they were doing. I think if the Commanders have a path to win this, they need to find a way to get their run game going. I mean, the player who had the most rushing yards against the Bears was Sam Howell. We got 4 carries for 19 yards. Brian Robinson didn't really get any yards. Didn't have the O-line to carry forward. So I don't necessarily think that that the Commanders have enough to probably put up to the Falcons at home. If this is in Washington, I could see things going differently. But I just think the Falcons, with Bijan Robinson, with the new receiving, with Desmond Ridder playing at home when he's obviously far more comfortable, everything to me is charted up for a close Falcons win, because especially in the second half, they can find a way to, if it's close, find a way to put their stamp on the game and get things done.
Colin mentioned Jack Del Rio. If the Commanders pull off the victory here, I'll treat Fred Flunk to a breakfast in Del Rio's, half off Abbey Street, just to celebrate an NFC East victory, because there's not many of them these days when it comes to the Giants and the Cowboys. Unfortunately, the Eagles are the one who are doing all that. Shane, I'll stick with you in the next one, and that is your beloved Patriots on the road in Vegas. And a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people would have felt this was one in which the Patriots would win comfortably, bearing in mind what we saw early on from the Raiders. But I felt a little bit that the Raiders had turned the corner on Monday night. I know the Packers can play very well, but if they're to win this game, they go back to 500. And despite all the flack in which Josh McDaniels has got, like in a division, so he can get out of this after 6 games and be 500. It's probably a bit of a result for them. Do you see the Raiders winning this one? Is Jacoby Myers going to come back to haunt the Patriots again, bearing in mind what he did last year when he was a Patriots player?
Yeah, it does feel like it's the New England Patriots versus the New England Patriots tribute act, only the tribute actor playing much better music. That's the way this is feeling with not necessarily because the tribute actor playing fantastically well, it's because the Patriots have been shockingly bad the last 2 weeks. I mean, the only touchdown that they've got the last 2 games from the plane touchdown in Dallas. I mean, it was ridiculously awful. What I want to see is who is coming to this game more peed off, frankly, because when Jimmy Garoppolo was running up and down the Raiders sideline on Monday Night Football, doing the whole Tom Brady act, cheering, doing the LFG and jumping around, surely somebody in the Patriots organization is looking at saying, you can't do that. We can't let him get away with that SH1T. That's not happening. But the problem is, how many people are in that Patriots locker room who were there, who were a part of the Brady bunch, effectively, who were there when Tom Brady was running around and would fight for the honor of their former comrade? Not many. I think the Raiders have a good chance here simply because they're better planned. They're at home. Jimmy Garoppolo is playing better than Mac Jones, quite simply. And when you have Max Crosby staring down the Patriots O-line, that's how they're going to stop everything. Because the Patriots, every time they try to do something, it's either let's go short and let's maybe get 3 yards from screenplay, or they try to go long and it just doesn't connect properly because they don't have the receivers, they don't have the O-line to protect Mac Jones long enough, and Mac Jones can either be very clean or very sloppy. There's no in between. We really want to see, as a Patriots fan, I really want to see a reaction from the Patriots after the last 2 games, but we wanted to see that last week against the Saints and it didn't happen, and I don't think it's going to happen this week. Raiders by touchdown for me this week.
Colin Shane refers to the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch program ended on the 8th of March 1974, and it feels like we're going back that far since the Patriots had a good season since Brady moved on. It's been a difficult few years. And how do you see this one going on Sunday? I know it's a foe within your division, but can you see Josh McDaniels getting one over his old mentor in Bill Parcells? Bill Belichick.
He could, but I think for both Josh McDaniels and for Bill Belichick, I think what will come to mind for both of them, a song made famous by Elvis Presley, but great versions by the Pet Shop Boys and by Willie Nelson, and that is always on my mind, because you cannot tell me that both of these men are not thinking about Thomas Edward Patrick Brady. They both enjoyed great success with him. Life after Brady has been very, very difficult for both of them. I think both of these teams are incredibly flawed, and it will be interesting to see how the respective seasons play out and whether either of these gentlemen are in situ next year. Very interesting conversations, I think, to be had in New England potentially, and what does Bill want to do? And my Raiders fans are none too impressed with Josh McDaniels, thanks to a professional foul by Marcus Peters. They managed to get the victory over Green Bay. I don't know. I think I can. It should be the Raiders, but I just don't know. I don't think I'm probably too scarred from the Patriots over the years. I cannot see a Bill Belichick team having 3 bad games like on the bounce like that, and especially the fact that it is against Josh McDaniels, even though they're on the road. I think maybe it will be, the last bite of a dying snake. But ultimately, I'm gonna go with the Patriots to win. Now, this will be Bill Belichick going back into his bag of tricks. This will be like when United got absolutely battered, and then Ferguson put 6 in midfield. He basically played a 4-6-0 formation against Everton. United got a 1-0 win, kind of got it back on track. I'd say Bill Belichick would happily take winning this game 6-3.
Well, you're talking about snakes. I met Kieran Boyle in town last weekend, and he was teaching me how to kill a snake, and it's actually in the middle of the snake. Chop them in the middle, and that's what I imagine they'll do on Sunday. They'll be chopping them around the middle of the field, with Devontae Adams going up and down the field, and on this Patriots defense. It should be the Raiders. I think it'll be the Raiders. Will it be the Raiders? I'm convinced it'll be the Raiders. I'm not even doubting. This Patriots enigma that you're talking about, Colin, is long gone. That's gone. Those days are gone. There's too many playmakers on this Raiders offense for me. You got Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Kobe Myers is having a strong season. We saw a bit of a breakout game from the rookie tight end on Monday night. I think they've got the players to handle this Patriots team. It's a Raiders victory for me. Closing out the second segment of the show this week is the game in SoFi, and that is the Arizona Cardinals NFC West clash going on the road to face the Rams. And the Rams again played really tough last weekend, Colin. We're on the wrong side of a defeat again, but they can certainly walk away from that game, with their heads held high, because they gave the Eagles a really tough game. They gave the 49ers a real tough game at home. Will they get their first home win in the season against this Cardinals team?
I think so. What comes to mind, Gene Autry had a song, Back in the Saddle Again, and essentially that is Sean McVay. He looks like he's loving life with these young receivers, this young team. Aaron Donald is enjoying life as well. I think this will be probably feistier than any of us might have thought at the beginning of the season. I think, if you had talked about this in August, it would have been, my goodness, both of these teams are going to be really struggling. But injuries are really beginning to bite now on the cards. I still think they'll play hard, but ultimately I'm going to say that Sean McVay and the Rams will have enough to win this one, particularly at home.
Matthew Stafford to Cooper Kupp last Sunday, Shane, was really effective. He looked like the old kind of Cooper Kupp again, and looked like the old Matthew Stafford. Touchdown, fortunate not to come out the right side of the victory, but having him back is huge. He's straight away, immediately, the connection was there. It looks quite positive for this Rams team right now.
Yeah, and it's amazing how the way we're going to talk about the Rams beforehand is this, they kind of had their one and done Super Bowl, and we're going to have a couple of years before they're back again. But yet, when we see Sean McVay coaching an offense that's working, it just seems to make sense. And we saw that particularly in the first half against the Eagles last week. But I think as both of these teams know by now, you can't only play one good half of football. The Rams didn't score at all in the second half last week against the Eagles. Yeah. Now, mind you, that's the Eagles defense, who are a hell of a lot better than the Cardinals defense. So I think that this is going to be a closer game than we expect. I think this is going to be a game where both of the offense are going to have plenty of room to do a lot of pretty cool stuff and to score a lot. This is going to be a high scoring game, but it's going to be Rams winning a high scoring game, because with Cooper Kupp back, with Puka Nacua, with all the with all of the offensive plan that they can work through, and they can really cut through the Arizona defense, I think the Rams can really put up a 50 plus points here. And even though the Cardinals might score high enough again, the Rams will come out as winners this one.
Yeah, I agree. I'm on the Rams. I think James Conner, for all the struggles his team have had, I think he's been a real bright spot. To lose him, it's a terrible shame. He's gone on IR. They brought in a rookie running back last week who had quite an effective game, got a touchdown, but it's hard to know whether he can really step up. I think the struggles offensively might start to come in this game, bearing in mind that the Rams defense has players that can get at the quarterback. And yeah, I see a good day for this Rams offense. And again, a running back as well. We're talking about the wide receiver. Williams has had a really strong season. They've got players who we never expected to have really strong seasons coming in and being really effective. For me, it's the Rams as well. That closes out the second segment of the Irish NFL show. Week 6 preview. Okay, guys, final segment of the show. And we're going to start off with a really enticing one, and that's the one down in Tampa Bay, and the Bucs hosting the Lions. The Bucs coming off a victory against the Saints 2 weeks ago. They've had their bye week, got a couple of players back from injury, looking very refreshed. A lot of positive talk coming out of camp around the fact that people were taking them and underestimating them going into the season, and here they are sitting at the top of the division, albeit played one game less than other teams. And they're playing against the Lions, and you could argue Lions, outside of maybe the Eagles and the 49ers, are in the NFC, are the hottest team right now. They've won again last weekend against the Panthers, 4-1. This kind of, for me, Colin, strikes me as the kind of game, if we're going to take the Lions seriously, they need to go on the road and win this type of game. Right? We've seen the Lions in the past. We've had these moments where we think they're turning a huge corner only to come out on the wrong side of a game. Do you see it that way? Do you think this is one where if they were to really get this victory, it's really kind of putting down a marker that they're definitely the best team within this division?
I do, and I think it is important that they do that, right? They beat the Chiefs, and I think they need another statement to show, right? We can go on the road. We can. Last week, they were Ben Johnson was in his bag of tricks with the snap directly to the RB, even with Goff in situ. So they were having a lot of fun, and now they need to go on the road against a Bucks team that are performing above expectation, and show that they can get the win. Country music gets a really bad rep, but for anyone out there, if you have a listen to Brooks and Dunn, had an amazing song called Boot Scootin' Boogie, and listen to the club mix of that. It is absolutely amazing. Great way to start a Friday morning. The rain should just be finishing tomorrow morning around about 7 or 8 o'clock. Get your Friday started with Boot Scootin' Boogie. I can see the Lions and Dan Campbell. I think this will be a good game, a good test. But I said it on the show before. I said the Lions are for real, and I think they are for real. I'm going to back them to get the win in Tampa Bay.
Shane, you can only imagine the narrative or the talk going on within the Bucks camp this week, and obviously leading into the weekend, Baker Mayfield will be rallying the team by the fact that a lot of people will not expect them to win this game, albeit the fact that they're at home. Do you see the Bucks finding a way to get a victory, or are you hot in the Lions as well?
I think it's very difficult to beat this Detroit Lions team. Look, the Buccaneers are going to come into this very prepared. In the first half, I'm sure that particularly offensively, they will have a very set group of plays that they're going to run particularly well. It wouldn't surprise me if the Buccaneers take a lead, maybe 7 or even 10 points early on. But the Lions are the kind who will just keep grinding. They always talk about grit. They have the grit to keep going and going and going and then grind one out near the end. I know they had a very close matchup against the Seattle Seahawks a couple of weeks ago, which the Seahawks ended up winning. And that was a kind of knockdown to the Lions, I guess, credentials as a team that when their backs are against the wall to really fight through it. I think this is a game where the Lions' backs are going to be against the wall because they mightn't be necessarily expecting the Buccaneers to be particularly strong in comparison to other teams that the Lions have to face this year. I think Baker Mayfield will come out with, and the rest of the offense will come out with a pretty strong plan that the Detroit defense might not be able to deal with early on in the game. But the longer we get into the game, the more time that Jared Goff has the ball, the more time they can pass the ball off to Montgomery, and the more time they can keep grinding out things and grinding the team down and using that grit and that determination that the modern day Detroit Lions are defined by. So for that reason, I'm going with a Detroit Lions win, but not by much.
I think it's been very recognizable over the past weeks how strong this Lions defense has played. It was one of the kind of the marquee, some of the Lions beat writers spoke to us on in the opening weekend of the season when we had our Thursday night preview. We had Ben Raven on. He said this Lions defense is for real, and people are kind of not really talking them up that much. They're more concerned about what they're doing on offense. But we've seen Hutchinson gradually over the course of the last few weeks start to get in and get the sacks, and their front seven is really strong. I think they'll give Baker Mayfield a real difficult day. I think Goff will have his game. They'll do well. You touched on Montgomery there. He looks like he's the bell cow. Dan Campbell has alluded to that this week, but I think defensively right now they're in the same place, and I think that defense will find a way to slow the Bucks down. I think the Lions get out there on the road with the victory on Sunday. So we're off to the MetLife now. It's the Zach Wilson show. Zach Wilson seemed to have torn a little bit of a corner, Colin. I know you were a bit frustrated by last weekend, Brendan, when you were playing the Broncos, and Jets fans were equally frustrated by two particular plays, and that was the one before halftime and the one at the end of the game. But there's also some bright spots in the game and the week before against the Chiefs as well. Do you see any hope for him against this Eagles team that will look to continue their winning streak and I suppose in line with the 49ers in terms of both teams being 6-0 come Sunday?
Yeah, there is some hope. The good news, if you're a Jets fan, is that Jalen Carter did not participate in practice today. He's down with an ankle injury, as is Darius Slay. So that's good news because Jalen Carter has been feasting. He has been absolutely phenomenal. We know the well-documented car crash where somebody died was the reason he fell in the draft. I love when you see stuff on Twitter going, how did Jalen Carter fall to 9? How did other teams allow that to happen? As if it wasn't, everybody knew what happened. They just don't want to talk about it, right? But on the field, Jalen Carter has been immense. This Jets team benefited last week from playing against a historically bad Broncos defense. Okay, that needs to be put into context. They were historically bad in week 1. They were historically bad in week 2. They were still historically bad through week 3. I mean, most of the times you're like, they'll have to get it right. Like you either think teams are too high or too low. They'll come back towards the middle. Through 4 weeks, still historically bad. Through 5 weeks, still historically bad. So going up against that Broncos team, the Jets were still 0-5 in the red zone. That is an enormous issue. Again, for them, they need to get that sorted out. And I think they're going up against an Eagles team who aren't on, firing on all cylinders in any way, shape, or form. They probably struggle to get out of the third gear, but ultimately they are getting it done. And it's a bit like, I talked earlier, 49ers have so many weapons, right? But so do the Eagles, right? So 1 week it is Dallas Goedert. Next week it is AJ Brown. Last week it's Jalen Hurts. So they have different ways that they can hurt you. And there's a good, like this one though, like both of these teams are kind of crash bang wallop a little bit. Unfortunately for the Jets, they just don't have the QB to do it. But there's a great Roy Acuff song, Wabash Cannonball, and that's what this reminds me of. These two teams kind of going at it. I do think the trench warfare in this one should be really good fun to watch if you are somebody who enjoys football and enjoys the intricacies of the game. I do think this will be one to watch. But ultimately, the Eagles, they're not going to win by huge scores, but they will get it done.
Cannonball was also a great British quiz show, if I remember correctly. Is Jets and offense going to be able to do a bit of a cannonball on this Eagles defense on Sunday, Shane? Or are you very much of the opinion that the Eagles will have more than enough, as Columns alluded to, getting the wins done, but certainly not at the level in which we're seeing from the 49ers, and he touched on it there in terms of sometimes you peak too soon during the season.
Yeah, this is going to be a game where the two defenses are better than the offenses that they're facing against. I think particularly obviously when the Eagles defense is facing the Jets offense, like Colin alluded to, and I don't want to beat up on the Broncos, but I think the Jets are made look a little bit better than they actually are last week by facing a Broncos team that weren't really able to stop them in the way that the Eagles will be. And you mentioned there that it's good news that Jalen Carter is looks like he probably won't be playing against the Jets. Good luck trying to get past Hasten Reddick and Blankenship and Nicholas Morrow and all the other Eagles guys who are just really good at stopping you when they need to, particularly when you're going to be relying on the ground game more because Zach Wilson just isn't Aaron Rodgers or a properly good quarterback. As much as Zach Wilson really did show improvements against the Chiefs 2 weeks ago, I think this is a game where he starts to sort of break down and slow down and come back down to the Zach Wilson we expect. The Eagles are too strong offensively, defensively. They're just too confident to let the Jets get to them. Will this be a high scoring or a very entertaining game if you're someone who likes a lot of touchdowns? No, like Colin said, this is going to be quite attritional, a lot of small things. This is going to come down to 2 or 3 yard plays rather than 20, 30, 40 yard big passes. But the Eagles will just be too good for the Jets this week.
I can't disagree with anything there. I don't see a way to victory as for the Jets in this one. I think the Eagles will have things all sewn up, early mid third quarter. I think this is one of those games that they'll find a way. I think Jets defensively can trouble this Eagles offensive line potential for some of the game, but just with Zach Wilson there, unfortunately, I can't buy into it. I know they won last weekend, but there's too many flaws. There's too many inconsistencies in his game, And I just don't see how the Eagles defense, Jalen Carter, can't do enough to get at him and upset him and disturb him. So for me, it's an Eagles victory. So Colin, waiting all day for Sunday night football. That's how the team goes, isn't it? It's just the one, isn't it? It's the big one on Sunday night. The Giants had 17 players on the injury report today. 17. And I'd argue that 11, 12 of those are actually players that you would expect to be contributing on the team, both offensively and defensively. It's a tough ask to win the Buffalo. Bearing in mind they're reeling off that loss last weekend. It would have been a tough ask no matter what the circumstances, when it was last season's Giants. But in this game, you can't see anything other than a landslide victory for the Bills.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those ones where you wish the NFL could have flexed it out. I mean, I think the Lions-Bucks game would have been much more interesting to put into this lot. You've highlighted the injuries. I think the Bills got it badly wrong in London. I think they will bounce back. And ultimately, Brian, this may be, you've got a long, trip to London, lots of traveling, come back. And I think at the end of this game, Willie Nelson sang about blue eyes crying in the rain. That's going to be Brian O'Leary at the end of this one.
Brian's Eyes Crying in the Rain is the remix coming out soon, Shane. Tyrod Taylor, in all likelihood, also to be the quarterback on Sunday. Doesn't look like Daniel Jones is going to go. But the Bills have some injury concerns of their own. They've lost 2 players for the season. Defensively, Tyrod Taylor is serviceable on his day. We've seen some times in the past where he's unearthed victories for teams when it was never expected. See any hope, do you think, is a scenario where the Bills are just not right after last week? We're talking about the Jags coming back off London.
Yeah,
the same scenario in place.
The only hope I can give is that the last two times I guess something big happened in MetLife regarding a New York team in Sunday Night Football, is things were actually a lot closer than we expected. I mean, everyone was saying, that the Chiefs and the Jets, that should have been moved off. That they should never shut on Sunday Night Football, and it turned out to be a very close game. And then when the Bills were last playing under the spotlight in prime time, everyone's saying, "Oh well, Aaron Rodgers is gone. The Bills are going to roll over the Jets, and the Jets pull out a win." Maybe the Sunday night spotlight does something to the Bills to slow them down, especially after they might still have some for a knock-on event from their trip to London. But I really think that's clutching at straws, to be quite frank. If we're going to compare performances from the last couple of weeks, are the Bills going to play like they did in London, or are they going to play like they did against the Dolphins? They're going to be a little bit more like they did against the Dolphins. I mean, especially after the loss in London, they need to click. There is an offense there is a team they're playing against that's been beat down, that's running low on their main players after losing so much, and even then not exactly being stacked to begin with. I really don't see any path for the Giants to win this. Will it be close after the first quarter, or maybe at halftime? Who knows? It's the NFL. Strange things happen, but I really don't see any path for the Giants to get going here, because the Bills really, from the first time they have the ball, they're going to have to make a statement and say, hey, well, this is a team that we're going to beat up on after losing in London last week, and people saying we're us losing our steam after making the big statement the week beforehand, beating the Dolphins, saying, hey, look, AFC, we're still here, we're still gunning for the Super Bowl. They're going to have to put up a statement in front of their home fans and say, yeah, these Giants are going to come in, we're going to beat up on them. And I think that's what's going to happen.
There must be a post opening in NBC that Shane is after, Colin, because he's doing his best to make sure this game sounds enticing, to get people to stay up at 1:20 in the morning on Sunday night going into Monday morning. Can't see it in any way, shape or form, unfortunately. I'd love to see it. I'd love to be going to bed late on Sunday night going into Monday morning. And we have a shock, but just cannot see it whatsoever. Monday Night Football closing out week 6 is a really enticing game. Cowboys coming off that difficult defeat in Santa Clara last weekend, having lost 42-10. Going up against the Chargers team coming off their bye week. Looks like the bye week has helped them in terms of getting players back. Austin Eckler, their key running back, is due to play. There's a few other players coming back from injury. And the Chargers got away with one, I'd say, the last day, with the Herbert 51-yard pass to close out the game against the Raiders. Kellen Moore will be looking to get this one over the line, a bit of a revenge game for him. You could say this is one of the better games of the weekend. Do you see the Chargers doing Chargery things or sportsy things and making a mess of this, or do you think the Cowboys rebound and get a really efficient performance, having seen what they did last Sunday on Sunday Night Football.
What I think, Brian, is both Mike McCarthy and Brandon Staley are big fans and proponents of probably the most famous country music song, Tammy Wynette's "Stand By Your Man." Both of them, I imagine, have that on repeat in their respective offices, hoping that the owners of their franchises will take note of it. I don't know whether either of those two will be in a job at this time next year, certainly not with their current teams if things continue. I think the Chargers have talked about it. I am a massive Justin Herbert fan, but I just do not think that they have constructed a roster around him to allow him and them to flourish. Like the JC Jackson thing. Like, I mean, my own team have, this week given away Randy Gregory. Frank Clark is about to go, but JC Jackson was on an enormous contract there, and they basically gave him away for a packet of Smarties back to the Patriots. It's like, and they don't have anyone who can take the top off. Mike Williams, yeah, you're saying they're getting players back, but I think this Cowboys team ran into a buzzsaw in the 49ers. I think it was a bad matchup, and I think the Cowboys' attitude was wrong again. I think they thought that they could kind of go toe-to-toe with the 49ers, and they couldn't. It was a really poor decision. You've got to be smarter about how you approach things. I think that Herbert has been the one who has carried this Chargers team over the past few weeks to the victories that they have gotten, but they have done everything they could. You've talked about it to give it away. I think the Cowboys bounce back, and I think they get the victory. I know you nearly fell off the chair when I said the Cowboys would still finish winning around 11 wins. Well, I think they do, because I think there'll be games that the Cowboys stupidly lose, and I think against really good teams the Cowboys won't be able to get the wins. But ultimately against the Chargers, I think the front seven that the 49ers were able to deal with so handily, the Chargers won't be able to do that.
Shane Collins referred to Smarties, but the Cowboys will be smarting after last weekend's loss and will look to get a rebound victory on Monday Night Football. Do you think they've had a week of licking their wounds to get themselves ready against the Chargers team, which are up and down at the best of times?
Yeah, that was a sweet segue. I'll give you that one. You mentioned earlier how the Chargers, I guess we would see them as being very Spursy, and the Chargers going to Charger. I think both of these teams are kind of very Spursy, don't you think? The Cowboys have a way of cowboying as well, that when they really need to put a statement in, they manage to fall back. Like Colin was alluding to earlier, I think the Chargers, Justin Herbert is once again going to have a fantastic game, going to make some great passes, going to make some great plays, going to score a lot of points, but as good as the Dallas defense is, and as much as the Dallas defense needs to react to what happened in San Francisco last week, I think it's the Dallas offense in particular that needs to clean up. And if they do clean up, the defense of Brandon Staley I don't think is enough to really stop them. They might bend, but they'll break eventually, and keep going. I think this is going to be a very good matchup. I think the lead is going to change over a couple of times, but wouldn't be surprised the Chargers, after playing fantastically offensively, go up into this game maybe 8-10 minutes to go, and the Cowboys found a way to win it and edge Brandon Staley and the Chargers closer to that DIVORCE.
Talk about bend and break, but this Cowboys offensive line has been a bit bend and break this year, because they've had so many injuries and they plugged and played at the time. And it looks like they're going to get players back from Monday night. But let's not forget, Khalil Mack had an 8-sack game 2 weeks ago, and kind of floating under the radar last week because they were going into their bye week. But the Chargers defense in particular in that game, albeit going up against a rookie quarterback in Aidan O'Connell, was quite impressive. I'm going to go with the Chargers to cause the upset here. I don't know if it's a massive upset, but I think they've had their bye week. I think sometimes getting the early bye week in the season can help get a team kind of going again after and get players back. Like, they've needed it, even though it's early in the season, to get players back. I'm going to go with the Chargers to get the victory on Monday Night Football in SoFi. There you go. Brandon Staley lives another week.
Shocking.
Colin was stunned. What a way to come out.
Brian just picked. Can we timestamp that? What was that? 1:13:42. Was that what it was?
I write down the date, 12th of October. It's something spooky happening. I don't know.
For anyone watching, you just watched a historical moment take place here. This is one for the ages.
I know we have to wait till Tuesday to see if I'm either completely lost or I'm actually finding a will to live and being reliant on backing the Chargers to win games. That is the closing out the final game of our week. Oh, there's Owen. Owen Healy has popped in. He must have heard the news that I selected the Chargers to win on Monday.
What must have done the Staley signal went up clearly.
Sure, me and Owen have a personal bet going on. I think that's what he's referring to for the season. In terms of how many victories the Chargers will get this season. So I'm doing myself have a victory if they win this game on Monday. Look, that's the end of our week 6 preview. I just want to call out a big night on Sunday night in Buskers on the Ball. Buskers on the Ball, also a partner of the Irish NFL Show, are hosting the San Francisco 49ers fans on Sunday for a watch party. They are playing on the road against the Browns. Anybody who's listening to this on the podcast can reach out on social media, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days, to Owen Farrell directly, or you can go to the Irish Faithful Twitter page and you will get the information there for Sunday, which looks like a great evening. Hopefully they're celebrating a victory and they go 6-0 and they're not like those 49ers fans in Leeds last year railing after their after party in which the 49ers lost to the Falcons. But no, has the makings of a great evening, and it's great to see so many fans getting involved and coming out for the events, and I'm sure Buskers on the Ball will look after them on Sunday. Colin, Shane, appreciative of your time tonight. Looking forward to London this weekend. Looking forward to all the action and looking forward to the Giants on Sunday night football. Thanks, guys.